And we're live, lights, camera, action. It's the Storyteller series where we sit down with a journalist who compile the news stories, the ones who bring you the headlines, the things that trend on Twitter, social media. There's always a team behind it, oftentimes they're not. And we sit down with them from different parts of the world, from different parts of the globe. I'm in Geneva filming this, and I caught up with a couple of people, and it's an interesting time out. Well, if you're a young person out there thinking about career paths and what have you, well, this you have to watch. Well, today we're going all the way to India. My guest is Tabassum
Barnagarwala.
Barnagarwala. Did I pronounce that right?
Barnagarwala.
Tabassum. Yes. It's good to have you, Tabassum. I really prayed that I did everything I possibly could. And yet, Tabassum, it's good to have you join me on the show today.
Yeah.
And she's a young person journalist covering women, children, a couple of issues, most importantly in rural India. Tabassum, we're going to be here for the next couple of minutes. I know you've had 4 years in journalism, right? Practicing.
Yes.
You have a journalism background. I'm curious as to ask you this because you have quite an interesting profile. When you set out and you said, I want to do journalism, you had your reasons. Sitting down here on this couch with you years later, are those still the same reasons why you do what you do?
Definitely. I started out with journalism because I wanted to work for a social cause. So I thought I can become a social worker or I could write about social issues. And I decided to do the latter because I could get a larger audience to listen to me. My main focus is always going to be on social issues. And in India, rural and tribal welfare and the developmental issues are the key focus areas where media is not venturing into yet. We have a lot of focus on urban health, urban women and child development issues, urban nutrition problems, but there is very little focus when it comes to tribal and rural areas. That is where we need to reach out to. So as a journalist now I'm attempting to go towards tribal and rural areas, meet as many people as possible. They have various kinds of issues. India is a diverse country. It has a lot of sub communities and caste and religion, and every community has its own set of issues. So what the government is doing for them, how are the policies working for them, these are issues that I'm passionate about. And 4 years down the line I've realized that I've just touched the peak of the iceberg, and there's this whole huge iceberg which is left to touch. So
Well, thank you. I guess that explains a lot of things and a lot of questions, and that's a leading question. I know you're based in the capital, but still I've gone through story after story that you've had to pursue. And yet, oftentimes they're not. The major stories, I notice you keep going back to the rural areas. What is this fascination with you and the rural areas? Because everyone stays in the capital in the big city and they're like, yeah, I'm in the big city, but it's almost like you keep going back there saying, no, the stories that need to be told are in the dark corners, and you keep going after that.
so I am in the financial capital of India, which is Mumbai. The national capital is Delhi. Now, Delhi and Mumbai both have a huge team of journalists who are working, which is a case in a lot of countries where you have journalists based in countries, in capitals, working on stories. The reason why I keep going back, so in Mumbai is a city in Maharashtra, which is a state in India.
Right.
There are tribal pockets. So we have a group called the Naxalites, who are a right wing group who create a lot of issues in terms of governance. They are at loggerheads with the governments
Right.
regularly. So the area where they have their own jurisdiction, the access to health, social schemes is very limited. There are hills in the state where tribal population lives, where again the access to road. So I'm talking about areas where there is no electricity, there is no road leading to those villages. During monsoons, which are the rainy seasons in India, these villages are completely cut off from the entire state. So food supply, civil supply, these things are lacking. So we are still living in a time where open defecation is a reality in these areas. Government is having a scheme called the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, which is Clean India Mission, under which they are building toilets. But even these toilets have not been able to reach these tribal areas.
No.
So open defecation has so many issues. It has direct correlation with stunting.
Wow.
uh, we need to talk about these issues. If
Wow.
we don't talk about these, it also leads to malnutrition. So there needs to be constant media focus on rural and tribal areas, because that's where work needs to be done.
Wow,
So
wow.
if I keep going back there, there are few areas where I know require a lot of focus from media, and media is not able to go there because it takes time and energy, and it takes a lot of efforts to go to these places.
You seem to have the energy for it,
Also,
if I
the
must say.
biggest challenge in India is that everybody speaks different languages. It's such a diverse country that in those tribal areas, there's a different language which people speak. So
Wow.
we need a translator to sort of go along with to reach out to these people, because Hindi and English are not the only two languages which people speak there.
Now you're talking about the challenges right now. I was going to ask you, that was exactly my next question. The challenges of covering development
Hmm.
in India. You've got diverse languages. So what would you say are the challenges of covering the
So,
development story?
okay, so if we are specifically talking about rural and tribal areas, the major challenges is, as I said, that there is no road access. So if I'm going to cover these areas, I have to be on foot for the entire day. Of course, there are no hotels, so we live in houses of tribals. We eat what they eat. There are no bathrooms in most of the houses of tribals. So if I'm going there, I spend 3 or 4 days in an area where there are no roads, there is no electricity. I have to walk the entire day to reach out to the most remote areas. So it can become harsh for a journalist to come from a city to such an area and report. But
Wow.
I'm finding that these areas are very calm, and they have a great life style to themselves, and it's great to cover these people who live there.
And she keeps going back. She talks about how difficult it is, like, this, but you have this look in your face that makes me understand that there's a reward system somewhat in terms of the fulfillment or satisfaction you get to tell these untold stories. And so I was going to ask you about, your answers just keep leading me on to the next questions to be asked. A woman covering development in journalism. We hear a lot of stories about women trying to break into these fields and industries. Obviously, this takes you off your comfort zone a lot. So, what's it like being a woman, a young woman,
So
a
you,
beautiful woman?
thank
What else
you.
am I adding? Am I leaving out?
Um,
Covering the development story.
you'll be surprised to know that in India, a lot of health reporters are female.
Wow.
So I think 90% women are in, like 90% of journalists covering health are women.
Wow.
So is the case with women and child development issues. So we do have a huge workforce which is female in journalism in India, and we talk about gender bias on a larger scale in terms of access to health and access to top positions. But in journalism per se, I have not had any issues, biasness or discrimination against female journalists working on issues. So that is a good thing.
I'm
uh,
sure a lot of women right now say, "Where's the next plane ticket headed for? I'm going to India."
Also, I believe women who have come into journalism are hardworking women, because it's a challenging job. In India, usually women are the ones who are ensure taking care of the family. Difficult dual role of doing well in your job and also taking care of your family. So it becomes difficult specifically for women, because journalism demands haphazard working hours. It demands that you wake up in the middle of the night and go report for a breaking story. So it's challenging in the way how we have to manipulate things. I'm not married yet, so I don't have to focus on that area, but I've seen married women take up that challenge and do really well. In India, women journalists are very passionate, and they get the space that men get.
All right. I also want to ask you because this is India. Yeah, we're talking about it. The place of the beautiful movies, the Bollywoods, and everything. And I'm just curious, and this is on a lighter note, because we see journalists sit down and ask the difficult questions and everything. But sometimes you get to that moment where you're in awe. Like, oh, I'm right here. What's going on? Any starstruck or awe-stricken
So,
moment. Yes.
so
Yes.
when I was an intern with, so I worked with this national daily newspaper called the Indian Express. So when I was an intern with them, there was this award function, movie award function, which was held, and my editor just told me, "Are you interested in going?" And I said, "Of course." I was very young, and he asked me to go and stand on the red carpet, and he said, "You're supposed to ask short questions to all the actors who are coming in." So I wore heels and I wore a dress,
All right.
and I met all the top actors:
Wow.
Amitabh Bachchan, Hrithik Roshan. I saw Deepika Padukone, Ranveer Singh, and I was supposed to ask them one-line questions. After 4 hours, I realized that I was hungry. These actors, of course, they're great. The charisma is big, huge, but I need food. And that was the day when my starstruck moments just ended. So I saw actors for 4 hours. I was amongst actors for 4 hours, and I was in the VIP lounge where I could see Karan Johar and Farhan Akhtar, and I could see food, and I went towards the food.
Yeah.
So it's gone now.
It's good now.
It's
Well,
gone now.
it's funny what happens when you're hungry. Don't mess around with hungry journalists. That's the moral of the story. Thank you so much, Tabassum, for giving me your time. Now I want you to for a young person who's watching this right now and who's like, you know what, I it's a tough word. It's a cutthroat industry out there. A brief word of advice, like, hello, Tabassum, I need a word of advice from you. This is an industry I'm trying to break into, and I don't know. You telling the story from India, from local communities where people wouldn't go, and it's making the rounds internationally. So, what word of advice would you to look into that?
For those who want to become journalists,
Yeah.
so I believe you need to have passion for doing journalism. I do not know globally, but in India, journalism is a low-paying job. So if you're not passionate about this profession, then it's very difficult to survive because it demands long working hours. The return in terms of monetary sense is low. And I've seen a lot of journalists switch from journalism to public relations because it pays well. I believe you need to have that knack for looking for stories which matter, not the regular stories which journalists do. That's easy. That even a stenographer can do. You just have to type
Mhm.
from press releases. So enter journalism only if you have that passion and if you're
Yeah.
okay with living with a small salary. So
Well, there you have it, and this is where the how the cookie crumbles in this edition of the Storytellers. Tabassum, thank you so much for giving me your
my
time.
pleasure was mine.
All right, I do hope I catch up with her sometime in India. It's a beautiful city you've got there, the Taj Mahal. I'd like to visit that someday. True life story. Okay, my name is Babachande Femi Okunla. Who we're going to be interviewing next? Well, you just have to tune in to find out. I hope you got inspired. I certainly am. Bye.